Hey guys, welcome back. I'm Making Campbell and this is Making Stuff. Well, where do I even begin? It's officially been more than 6 months since my last video. In fact, according to YouTube, it's been 194 days, I think. Now, the last video I uploaded was shortly after my mother passed away, and I basically only finished that video just so I could get it out the way. Now, after that, obviously making and uploading videos was just not really a priority for me. So basically for the last 6 months, I've just taken a really long break from social media in general. In fact, I haven't even been posting to Instagram or Facebook or any of my social media accounts. Now, while I stopped uploading content, I didn't exactly stop making stuff. In fact, in the last 6 months, I've made quite a lot of stuff. The only difference is I didn't record any of those projects and I didn't upload them. For most of the things that I made, I did in fact take pictures. Now, while you're watching this, I might just put up a little slideshow here on the side somewhere, showing some of the projects that I made, for those of you who might be interested. Now, my idea was never to totally stop posting videos. Initially, after my mom passed away, I just didn't really feel like making videos. But as time went on, I started to get to a point where I actually wanted to start creating videos again. But by then, so much time had passed, I started to find it a little bit difficult to get back into it. Initially, I couldn't really come up with ideas for things that I wanted to do, videos that I wanted to create. And then later, even when I came up with ideas that I thought would be good for videos, by then even more time had passed, and for some reason everything sort of felt kind of forced and not natural, if that makes any sense. And also then on the other hand, I started to remember how easy and quick it was to create projects without having to shoot and edit video for those projects. So I started to become somewhat spoiled because I was enjoying the fact that I could come up with an idea for a project that I wanted to make and dust it off in a day or two, because you kind of sometimes forget how much extra time it takes just to create content as opposed to just creating a project. So we took quite a long, much needed vacation over December last year, and during that time I spent many hours thinking about what it is that I'm going to do going forward. And by that I don't mean specifically just in my channel, I mean my life in general. And during these many hours that I spent thinking, one thing kept on popping up, and that was CNC. Now, a CNC is something that I've been wanting for a very long time. For some of you that have been watching this channel since the beginning, you will know that I have quite a background in laser cutting and engraving. I used to work on a laser machine at my previous job, and in fact when I left that job, I was lucky enough to be able to keep that machine for almost a year until I eventually had to give it back. Now, even though at the core CNC and laser are very similar, in other respects they are very different. So there's always been two main reasons why I've never really gotten into CNC, and the first reason is because it was fairly daunting for me initially, because I knew that it would be quite a bit of a learning curve, learning all the new software that I would need for CNC, as well as all of the tooling, and then learning all of the speeds and feeds for all of these different kind of tools. And the second reason, which is the main reason I think, is because of the price. I've never really been in a position where I could afford buying a CNC machine, because I knew I didn't want to start off with some kind of small desktop unit. I wanted to have something larger because the ideas for things that I wanted to make with it would just not be possible on a smaller machine. Now, after my mother's passing, I was lucky enough to inherit some money. Now, we're most definitely not talking about the kind of money where I can just retire and live out the rest of my life off of my inheritance. Definitely not. So it was very important for me to try and make this money firstly last, and secondly perhaps even grow it. Now, because of that, I decided in the beginning of this year that a CNC is what I was going to buy. I spent a good month or two researching CNCs. I looked all the way from Onefinity CNCs, Avid CNCs, bigger shop-bought machines, but all of those machines, factoring in transport to get them here, would cost me a fortune, and it was just not feasible. Eventually I found a company in neighboring South Africa who also builds aluminium extrusion CNCs, very similar to the Avid CNCs in America, and while the price was fairly good, I still wasn't 100% sure. Eventually I spoke to a friend of mine who has a local signage shop here in town, because I knew that he had a CNC, and I wanted to create 1 or 2 files that I could test cut on his CNC to see if some of the ideas that I had would work. Now, I did end up creating one chair project that I cut on his CNC, which turned out really well, and eventually we ended up talking about where he sourced his machine from. And almost all of the machines in his company he sources directly from China, and he suggested that I look on Alibaba or AliExpress and see what they have to offer. To be honest, I was really shocked at the prices for the machines in China. I must have spent another 2 or 3 weeks on Alibaba trying to source reliable machines and reliable suppliers, which eventually led me to a company called Blue Elephant. So the machine that I eventually decided on was a 1325, which means it's 1.3 meters by 2.5 meters. So basically it can fit a full 4x8 sheet of plywood, which is exactly what I wanted. So the difference between this machine and the aluminium extrusion machines, such as the one I checked in South Africa, as well as the Avid CNCs, is the fact that this is made from solid plate steel and welded together. So all told, this machine weighs roughly 1.5 tons. Now, while having a machine that big and that heavy does come with a few cons, it does definitely also come with a whole lot of pros. A solid steel welded machine is always going to be a lot more rigid than any of your aluminium extrusion machines. So after a couple of months with a lot of thought and even more research on top of that, I eventually pulled the trigger and I purchased this machine. And that was roughly 3 months ago. It took them around 40 days to build the machine, and for the last month and a half it's been in a shipping container on its way here. So today is Wednesday the 24th, and according to the shipping company it should land at the port in Walfish Bay on the 27th, which is Saturday. Now, I live in Windhoek, which is roughly 400 kilometers away from Walfish Bay, so I still have to organize road freight from there all the way here, and then there is the giant task of getting that machine inside my workshop, and I will definitely be sharing that exercise with you. Now, before we discuss this machine any further, let me also just mention that in the 3 months since I purchased this machine and have been waiting for it, I've had a couple of other additions to my workshop as well. Firstly, I purchased my very first 3D printer, which is also something that I've wanted for a long time. I eventually went for the Creality Ender 3 S1 Plus, I think it is. And I've already made quite a number of things using the machine. Initially I just downloaded a couple of models from Thingiverse, which I printed, and eventually, because I have some 3D modeling experience, I used Fusion 360 and I created quite a few projects of my own, and it has definitely been quite a pleasant experience. And moving forward, if there's anyone interested, that is definitely something that I can also share on this channel in the future. And then lastly, even though I wasn't looking for one, about 2 months ago I happened upon a second-hand laser machine. Now, even though I wasn't planning on purchasing another laser machine, this opportunity came up and I just couldn't let it pass me by. Now, this machine was definitely not the easiest purchase I've made, as the last machine I worked on was pretty much a plug-and-play machine. We purchased it directly from a supplier in South Africa who came to install the machine at our offices here in Windhoek and gave us all the training needed. So basically there was not a lot of technical knowledge required in operating the machine. And if I ran into any problems, the technicians were just a phone call away. Now, this machine which I purchased, on the other hand, was nothing like that. You see, this machine is roughly 10 years old, and I bought the machine before I realized how much of a problem that was going to be. So the biggest problem that I had with this machine was that the laser control unit was so old that it couldn't work with Lightburn or RDWorks, which was the software that I was going to choose to work with this laser. So after a bit of research, I found that the laser control unit can be replaced with a newer unit, which is exactly what I ended up doing. So the controller I ended up going for was a Ruida 6445S, I think it is. I managed to find a supplier for that in South Africa, and I had that shipped here. And initially I thought it would be a fairly simple process, but boy was I surprised. It took me almost all of 2 weeks to upgrade the controller and eventually get it working. So the only other cons of this machine is that it doesn't have a motorized bed, which is what I was used to in my last machine, and it also didn't come with a honeycomb cutting table. But stay tuned, that is a build that I'm planning to do really soon. Other than that, the biggest pros of this machine are the laser power and the size of the machine. This machine has a 1200 by 600 millimeter material capacity paired with an 80 watt laser, which makes it roughly 4 times times larger than my previous laser and 20 watts more powerful. So even though I haven't used the laser for more than 3 years now, and this machine has definitely thrown me a couple of curveballs, in the end I seem to have managed to get it working fairly well, and I've made a number of fairly cool projects with it so far. So as you can see, I've had to make quite a few changes in order to accommodate this machine. So far I've had to move all my bicycles away from that wall so that I could make use of the exhaust system that was already in here for my last machine. As some of you may remember, my previous machine used to stand in a little hole over here back when there was still an office built inside the garage. I have, however, in the meantime had to upgrade this exhaust system from an 80mm pipe to a 110mm pipe, so this is much bigger now. At the moment I've got my old gaming PC over here, which I'm using to control this machine, and I'm hoping to use the same machine to control the CNC, which is going to go that side. Now to get the CNC in here, I'm basically going to have to take everything out here. The CNC is going to fill up this whole space. I'm not even sure if it's going to be able to fit in here with this computer standing where it is now. So I might have to come up with some other solution for the PC. Because along with the CNC, I also ordered a dual bag dust collection system, which is also going to take up a whole lot of space. I'm hoping to put the dust collection on that side against the wall, and the CNC is going to stand a long ways down here. Now from what I can tell, the machine is roughly 3 meters long by about 2 meters wide. So this whole miter saw station is going to have to go, and this whole lathe setup is going to have to go. I don't know where it's going to go, but for now it's just got to get out so that I can make space for the machine. Okay, so I think that's about everything I wanted to cover in this video. Basically, in a nutshell, I just wanted to let you know I am still alive, and while I am purchasing all of these machines to eventually do commissions and make some money, I am still in fact planning on uploading videos to this channel. I don't know how many and how frequently, but I will definitely be creating as much content as I can. In terms of what that content is going to be, it is most probably going to be centered around the machines that I purchased, that being the 3D printer, the laser cutter and the CNC. Everything from dealing with the software used to create projects all the way to getting them ready to be machined or cut. Perhaps some tips and tricks that I learned along the way, as well as normal woodworking projects incorporating these machines. So with all that said, you are also more than welcome to make suggestions on the type of content that you would like me to create, things that you might want to learn. Feel free to make your suggestions in the comments below, and I will do my very best to accommodate them. So I think that pretty much brings us to the end of this video. I promise it won't be another 6 months before I upload my next video. I am, however, going away with my family for a long weekend, but I will be back on Monday. And I'm hoping that I'll be taking delivery of my CNC machine around Tuesday or Wednesday, but that all depends on how long it will take for the machine to clear customs and to get from Walfish Bay to Windhoek. But I will keep you posted. As soon as the machine arrives at my house, I will upload some pictures to my Instagram. So go and give me a follow there, and then you can see when that happens. And as soon as I've got everything in place, I will possibly do a small test project just to see if everything works. And I will upload a video on that as soon as possible. So as always, thank you very much for watching. I apologize for being away for so long, but I plan to make up for it in the future. So till next time, keep making stuff.